Hi guys, welcome back to the Mzansi Reality YouTube channel. Thank you so much for joining us yet again for another video. Guys, I come bearing very shocking news, very bad news. I remember the last time I did such content, I was in awe. I was very shocked, but now I felt the need to do and cover this story so that maybe there's something that we can learn from it. Maybe there's something that we can pick up. Maybe, just maybe, you guys on the comments can tell me what is going on in Ananda. What is going on? This is so shocking. Our youth is perishing in gangsterism. I recall the last time I covered such a similar story. It was of a young gangster who lost their lives by the name of Stomani from Soshanguve. And what took me by surprise was people celebrating his death. When I saw people cheering the fact that he is no more on the comments and they were happy, I was alarmed. I was shocked. In fact, I was so shocked that I did a video about it. But now, fast track, somewhat 2 years later, I'm hearing shocking things coming from Ananda. I'm hearing that children are actually gangsters. Oh my God, you guys. It's awful. I am traumatized with the research that I've been doing, and I had no idea. But it just lets you know also about the state of the situation in the country. I mean, everywhere you turn, there's crime. That should tell you something about what is happening, that people are not being taken care of. They are being failed. The system is not working out currently. I can only hope what will happen in the future, because this young man I'm going to be talking about, he's quite young. There is no sense in why he got involved and ended up being a leader of a whole gang. In this video, guys, I will be talking about another gang leader who was very, very young. I mean, born in 2001. The General Mnqobi was saying that he's 24. He was 22, but turns out he's 24, and he's been doing this for quite a long time. He's from the township of Ananda, a township based in Durban, KZN. And this township, from what I've been researching, it's ridden with gangsterism. It's really bad. People are dying. People are being robbed. Gangsters are forcing themselves on women. It is really bad. There's also the protection mafia. What do they call them? The ones that extort business owners for money. These gangs do that, and they are run by youth, very young people. In fact, the SAPS ran a program about 2 days ago in the area, and General Mnqobi, as well as the minister Ubabuntuli, were there, and they were addressing the crime that is ridden there in the township of Ananda. Well, the funeral of this young man caught and made headlines in the papers for it having a heavy police presence in Ananda, Durban, at this funeral of this young man who's alleged to have been a gang leader. For me, it was for the very first time that I heard of such, that the police attended the funeral of a gang leader. Not only did they attend the funeral of a gang leader, they were heavily guarding everyone in that funeral. Everything. They were on watch. They were guarding every single activity around that funeral. And apparently, they also engaged in, taking care of other members that attended the funeral physically, if you know what I mean. It was out of this world. It's like a movie script. I am shooketh to my core. You know, the way this young man was so dangerous. His funeral was guarded by the police. And I'm not just talking any other ordinary police. They were wearing black outfits. It's my very first time seeing such police, seeing such presence at any funeral. Guys, look at that. Look at police officers. I'm gonna play it again. You look at that. I was absolutely shocked to my core. I said, what is going on in Ananda? I think I haven't been paying attention to the news and the documentaries that were done, because actually when I was doing my research, I was like, oh my God, this has been happening for so long. The funeral was heavily guarded by the police. This funeral of a gang leader, and apparently it was held in Phoenix Hall on Saturday the 8th of this month, February, and the name of the gang leader was Mnqobi Nzimande, and he was aged 24. Okay, I'm gonna show you a picture of Mnqobi that was on his funeral plan. Look at him, he looks so young. Mnqobi Siyabonga. Okay, he named himself by the German party that we shall not mention, because I'm not sure how YouTube reacts. I don't know how YouTube reacts to this name, but I will just take my chances and say it is namba to Nzimande. So he called himself by the worst person in history, the person who's heavily crucified for all the atrocities that he did. But he was born in 2001 and he perished in 2025 on the 30th of January. So yes, that's him. So young. So young. Well, he was a leader of the worst gang, popularly known as Hilte number 10. Oh, so that's the name of the gang that they put there on his funeral obituary. They put the name of the gang. He was the leader of the West Gang, popularly known as Hilte number 10, Hilte number 10, and he was feared by residents in Ananda. Well, he was killed in a shootout with the police in Ferulem on the 30th of January, along with his accomplice. His accomplice is not mentioned by name. They are not mentioning the accomplice. I don't know why. Well, Mnqobi, who was feared by Ananda residents, was linked to 20 cases. He's 24 and he was linked to 20 cases and had allegedly killed more than 10 people. He's 24. Allegedly killed more than 10 people. I have never been so shocked in my life. He was turning 25 this year and he had already killed more than 10 people allegedly. He was feared in the community. Him and his accomplice, who is not mentioned by name, were in a dramatic police shootout at Cottonlands in Verulam on the 30th of January. It was a Thursday afternoon. The incident unfolded after law enforcement received intelligence about the gang's movements. Authorities had been tracking the gang leader and his two accomplices as they traveled to Umhlanga, allegedly to collect illegal substances and ammunition. So upon leaving Umhlanga, the suspects swapped vehicles in an attempt to avoid detection. So they were trying to dodge the police that were after them, that were on their tail. I could already see that maybe they had picked them up or they have been tipped off. Who knows? I don't know. However, the police had already identified them and continued their surveillance on them. So the suspects were followed until they parked along Vincent Dickinson Road in Cottonlands. As officers approached their vehicle, the suspects opened fire, forcing the police to retaliate. So here the report is saying that they are the ones who actually opened fire at the police first. And once you do that, it's game over, fun. When you are caught by the police, it's best you do not shoot back. Once you shoot, you give them the permission to end you. And this is a situation, unfortunately, that the police, it was either them or the criminals, and they chose themselves. A fierce shootout apparently erupted, leaving the 22-year-old gang leader and his 27-year-old accomplice fatally wounded. A third suspect managed to escape the gunfire and is now the subject of an extensive manhunt. So one of them, a third suspect, managed to run away and escape that whole shooting. And now they are looking for him. He's the subject of an extensive manhunt. Authorities believe that he played a crucial role in the gang's criminal activities and are working to track him down. The gang leader had an outstanding arrest warrant for murder and was linked to over 20 cases, including allegations of killing more than 10 people. His criminal history also involved charges of attempted murder, robberies, intimidation, and arson. Although the suspect's vehicle had not been fully examined, a firearm was already discovered in the gang leader's possession. So Lieutenant General Mnqobi, the Provincial Commissioner for KwaZulu-Natal, commended the officers who tirelessly pursued the main suspect, who had been instilling fear in the community of Inanda and in KwaMashu and nearby regions. He said that the preferred outcome would have been for the police, of course, to capture the suspects alive, allowing him to face justice in court and provide closure to many of his victims and families. Unfortunately, he chose to attack the police officers, which compelled them to protect themselves, ultimately determining his own destiny. In an ideal world, that would have been, but however, depending on the criminal justice system in itself and how it works, because people get bail and stuff. So it can be quite a long process. But of course he had to say this because he's been receiving a lot of backlash where people feel like they don't even ask questions. And some people are accusing the NIU of not following proper protocol, and they are accusing them that, hey, when these criminals, they get them, most of them are not shooting back. It's just something that they are saying. I don't know about that. But if a police officer has to defend themselves against a dangerous criminal, I would rather the police officer live than the dangerous criminal. That's just my opinion and my 2 cents. Well, General Mnqobi did say something, and here's a clip of him and the statement that he made concerning this whole situation.
namhlanje sizoncoma ukusebenza kwamaphoyisa. Amaphoyisa ala kwiprovince yaKwaZulu-Natal asebenza ngokuzimisela njengoba sibona nje sime la kade amaphoyisa lokho eqale ngo-1 ekuseni egijimisana nesigebengu. Lesi sigebengu esilele khona lapha emotweni njengamanje isigebengu kade saziwa kakhulu ukuthi siyileader, umholi weqembu elibizwa ama-West Gang. Abafana abancane una 22 years njengoba elapha nje. Kodwa ngicabanga ukuthi unedumbu ezingaphezulu kwa-10 asazibulala yena yedwa. Bese kuba ezinye ke iqembu lakhe elihlangene naso khona ke basinda ke bedutshula bangafa babuye baphinde bantshontshe nempahla zabantu njalo njalo. Umphakathi waseNanda ubuhlukumezekile kakhulu ngezenzo zabo, so siyajabula kamaphoyisa ukuthi yasezafika lesikhathi ukuthi amthole ngebhadi ke akakwazanga ukuphila njengoba elele emotweni nje ngoba ukwazama ukuthi anyasane namaphoyisa wagcina eshonile. Kodwa maningi amacala azokwazi ukuvaleka ngenxa yokutholakala kwakhe. Ngicabanga ukuthi imindeni eminingi izothola ukukhululeka ngokuthi umbulali wemindeni yabo useze watholakala naye. Sithemba ukuthi nobugebengu ngathi uncipha kancane, kodwa siyazi ukuthi bengasebenzi yedwa. Ningi iqembu lakhe kade sebenza nalo, baningi esabafuna. Siyazi ukuthi isikhathi esiningi umuntu makade esebenza eqembini uyethi mangabe kuyena mholi makwalimala kube khona umunye ophakamayo athi hayi sekuyena uthatha over. Nalo-ke uzohamba njenganaye lo uma ukuthi abakwazi ukuthi bazinikele emaphoyiseni bazovuma izono zabo ukuze bathole isigwebo esibafanele.
Well, yeah, he's literally giving a warning to whoever may think of taking over from Mnqobi. Whoever may think of running this gang and becoming a leader, he's just telling them that the same fate awaits them. Yes. And he's also describing how young he was, literally everything that I've just shared, you guys, that he was so young and he was accused of so many crimes. And he's hopeful that the people and the families that were affected by his crimes get some form of closure, although it would have been much more preferable if he could have been alive so that he can stand trial and all of that. But it is what it is. It was either them or the police, so they did what they have to do. Also, I am so shocked that this is actually happening, that people in their 20s already are gang leaders. Back in the day, you'd find a gang leader being someone who's very old, people in their 40s, men in their 40s. But now, people in their 20s are leading gangs. I'm so shocked. And this gang apparently is a gang that establishes itself in many different townships. But even in Ananda, from what I'm hearing, there's many groups of this gang. It's not just one gang. It's many groups of the same gang with the same name. And then there's other different gangs. You know what I always or would like to say is that you will always think that the SAPS are not working until they are looking for you, I guess. You will do not fall for this whole thing that is happening with the criminal justice system and think that you can just do crime and get away with it. No, it depends on who you are. Okay, it depends on who you are. So if the police are looking for you, they will find you. Don't do crime. Crime doesn't pay. Leave it alone. I'm speaking to the young audience who may happen to find this video out of curiosity. Just leave it alone. Work hard. Start from scratch. Work. Leave this whole thing of criminality alone. It's non-beneficial. It ends up like this, or it ends up with you sitting at jail, facing the walls and stuff. So he had been sought by the police apparently for 2 years now. And, there were a lot of cases that were opened against him. So before his funeral, the other gang members allegedly, they said that they were going to make life difficult for the community of Inanda as they lost their leader. So they were mourning and they were bleeding, and they decided that they were going to bleed on the community and the residents. So it's not enough that they were terrorizing them. It's not enough that they were doing all these crimes against them. Now they lost their leader and they want to punish the community. So they were literally threatening the community and blaming the community for losing their master. This is sounding rather like a cult. It's sounding like it's a cult. It does. So because of these threats that the gang members were making to the community, this sparked fear amongst the residents, who then pleaded with the police, asking them to be visible throughout the weekend as this young man was getting buried. One of the residents said that some of the gang members had told them that they'll make sure that there is chaos during their gang leader's funeral. The audacity, Sana. The audacity. You go around making threats that during a funeral you're going to cause chaos. Hey, guys. And then the residents said that they then reported this thing to the police on Friday. They saw a huge turnout of police. They were seen everywhere doing stop and searches. They were then relieved. He further said that Mnqobi had terrorized them in the area. Him and his gang members made their lives a living hell. They robbed them. They forced themselves on women. They stole and ended the lives of many people. Another resident that the police said that the police should stay in Ananda for longer than the funeral, because if these gang members see that they are no longer there, they'll continue terrorizing people in the township. One thing I've always asked myself, is why can't soldiers be deployed to such communities where the crime is like this, where people are not safe, people are not feeling safe? Every 5 minutes they're hearing gunshots. They can't walk in the streets. Why can't soldiers rather go and clean up those communities? Because at this point, it sounds like these type of gangsters need soldiers. They are far beyond police officers. And I know with communities where gangsterism takes over like this, sometimes it has to do with the police officers themselves taking bribes a lot. So they will take bribes to the extent where they no longer have control over the community. And the next thing you know, we have situations like this where 24-year-olds are gang leaders and stuff, and terrorizing communities and killing a lot of people. It's out of control. At this point, it's out of control. But the police are definitely having a strong arm over this particular situation. Another resident said that the police should find a way to end the worst gang, which is the gang Mnqobi was a leader of. So apparently this gang recruits boys as young as 9 years old. They teach them how to rob people, how to steal, and how to shoot. This resident said until the West gang is finally dealt with, they will keep hearing about their evil deeds in the area. Well, there's a picture of West gang that I found on the internet. Look at that, guys. These people barely look like they're out of their teen years. They look like teenagers. And there they've built the name of their gang using alcohol bottles. Hi, Gobi, South Africa, guys. Gobi. Apparently, most people were happy about Mnqobi's death, but surprisingly, a lot of them attended his funeral. Now, I personally, what caught my attention was when I saw a video of young women twerking for his coffin and dressed really, really inappropriately for a funeral, according to how we in African customs do. You know, for a moment there, I thought they were in the province of Hilte in the townships, because this no longer shocks us anymore. But to see it in KZN and these women, young women, and that just shocked me, because I'm like, if you are saying that these people are criminals, why do you want them out? Again, it's also confusing why his funeral is so full. Were they there to make sure that indeed he's really gone? But then if that was the case, Why are people twerking? Why are these people twerking? I'm shocked. I'm honestly shocked. And there's also recordings of the aunts that I found very weird. There's about 3 recordings I collected of the aunties, and I want us to listen to them one by one. Of course, they are in Zulu. I'll try my best to translate. Hopefully, I can translate for you guys what is going on there. But I'm like, these aunties are shocking me right now because I wasn't expecting them to speak of him as if he's being laid with false accusations. Because that's what it sounded like from 2 of them. But let us listen before I make prejudgments. Okay, the auntie there is calling him a protector of the community. And she's saying that he must go rest in peace at the feet of our Maker. That he will be missed and that he was a warrior and he was a protector of the community. And there were also allegations that were thrown by, or made rather, by this man who works, I think, or I came to the conclusion that it's a funeral parlor because I only saw the recording. He was talking about how and what was happening, the events of the funeral. He was saying that people were being kicked. Mapoisa, they were beating everybody up. Ebebe khahlela wena mama, khahlela wena sisi, khahlela wena boogie. See, they even were kicking his coffin and apparently it fell over. Oh Lord. He was describing how it was something he could look into, harassment, it was inhumane. And he was also saying that maybe they should have arrested the cops. They should have arrested his cops because it looked like the police had a lot to get out of their chest. It's not I. It's all allegations, honey. It's all allegations because, wow. I'm just shocked about the events that took place at this funeral. For now, let's listen to another recording of, I don't know whether it's the same aunt who was speaking at the funeral or it's a different aunt. But it's one of the aunts doing an interview. Let's hear what she had to say. Or she's alleging that by the time that the coffin of their nephew arrived, the police had already been at the premises and they had already beaten people up.
Afika amaphoyisa ashaya abantu emva kwaloko ngithese efikile wabekwa lapha ngaphandle sesithenge nezimbuzi ukuthi agezwe kwenziwa amasiko ukuze abuyele angene ekhaya semakulwa lana kukhona nomakhelwane la endlini esasihleli nabo ababezimazisile kulindele istumbu ukuthi sifike angena amaphoyisa la endlini.
She's saying that they had already bought the stuff that they used to bath the deceased. Sounds like they bath the deceased after they come from the mortuary. And she was saying that the police were already there and they had already, before his body arrived, the police had started beating people up. They entered the house and started pointing them with guns. They told them to keep quiet while they're singing. They're singing for a dog. He is a dog. He is a dog that needs to be thrown in the trash.
Emva kwalokho sebephumile abantu laba abahambayo sebeshayiwe kanti nalapha futhi ngezansi ngaphandle bashawa umalume wakhe nobaba wakhe ababekhona beyogeza isithunzi bashawa.
So the police were chasing everybody out by beating them with a rod, and then they also beat up the uncles and the elders. They were kicked out where the body was, and the body was left alone in that specific area or room. Then they kicked his coffin until his body got out of the coffin, and they even destroyed the coffin. Laba babele endlini ke basitshela ukuthi siculela inja akuyona into efanele ingcatshwe le into efanele ingcatshwe la ngezansi kuphuma abafana manje bahambe bayomba la imbelwe ifakwe emgodini. They were saying he's a dog, he must not be buried in a coffin. These are the police. He needs to be buried in his body like that, taken to the grave as he was, not in a coffin. Wabona futhi la abantu asathatha abafana phuma abafana abawufola bayombela lapha ngaphandle agcitshwe ngoba inja. They were saying that there are 4 guys that needed to go outside and dig a grave for him because he must be buried like a dog. Bathi thina siyakwazi ukukhala singathi nathi siyakwazi ukukhala la sangazi ke thina ukuthi yonke leyo nto ichaza ukuthini. They were saying that they also know how to cry. It seemed like she's saying that they were telling them that they know how to cry as a family, alluding to the fact that they know how to pretend. Maybe the family wasn't aware that he's an awful person, but I highly doubt it if they were living in the same community that terrorizes people. So there's a possibility that the family knew, But the police definitely, this young man pissed off the police. The police were pissed off at him. They were pissed off. They didn't like him. And that is alarming. That is very scary stuff.
Kahle abantu bashayiwe la endaweni. Hayi ukuthi kushawe thina mndeni kuphela. Kushawe nomphakathi na wonke abantu babeshawa ngeimvubu beshawa bethikiswa phansi amaphoyisa. Siphatheke kabuhlungu ke ngoba thina besilindele ukuthi ngoba naku umntwana wethu useshonile kanje sizomfihla ngendlela efanele. Besingalindele ukuthi kulesi simo singathola ukuhlukumeza okungaka okwenziwa abantu.
So she was saying that she didn't expect for them to be terrorized. By the way, I'm doing these translations for some of non-Zulu speakers' family who may be asking me, what are they saying? What are they saying? Well, she's saying that they didn't expect for the beatings. They didn't expect for even the community members to get beatings because allegedly also the community members who were there at the funeral also got, massaged by the police. And they were telling them that she was saying that they were not expecting to bury him like that, where the police would now come and do what they did.
Sasitshela ukuthi wona amaphoyisa mefika mhlawumbe azobezosigada ukuthi sikwazi ukuthi sifihle ingane.
She thought that the police were there to guard them so that they have a proper funeral and they're able to bury their child.
Sisho lutho thina ngoba asazi thina besesikhalela leli side lethu lokuthi njengokuthi usevela usethula umntwana bese kufanele sinikeze lelo thuba lokuthi simngcwabe kwenzeke yonke into ngendlela esingalindela ngikazi ngikubona ukuhlukumezile ngesikoleni ezinye ayizihambe esikoleni ngenxa yokuhlukumezeka lezitholile.
Well, she's saying that they were not expecting that. They were thrown off guard. And the children of the family were also traumatized. They didn't go to school. Guys, if I messed up any translations, you can correct me in the comment section. Just correct me. Don't do all the extra stuff. Just correct. Respectfully. Well, there's another recording again of another aunt. It sounds like a different aunt, but this one was more extensive. It was with the Kozi FM. It was a lot of detail that was shared, and I found very interesting. And just to add to this story and give Mnqobi and get a picture of what was going on with him, the aunt, although I have to admit that these aunts sound like apologists, they are sounding like they don't want to take full accountability of the criminality elements of this young man. There's no way that the police are just this hysterical over nothing. It means the crimes that he did were deep and they perhaps made them look bad. And one thing about police, they don't want to be embarrassed. So it looks like he was a handful. That's the impression that I'm getting. And it's an impression that a lot of people are getting. And there's an impression also, because there's also another interview that I listened to of this other guy was talking and confirming that he was anonymous, but he was confirming that the gang exists and he was the leader of the gang and he was brutal. Everybody in that gang allegedly is very much brutal, right? And the stuff that they had to make him go through, I don't know what he said it took for him to get out, but he said there would come a point where when he wanted to leave the gang, he went to the police and the police told on him on the gang, and then the next thing he was victimized. So he said he was at a point where he doesn't even trust the police. So could the police also be affiliated with this gang? I don't know, but it sure is deep. The kind of treatment that Mnqobi's cops received. It has a lot of anger coming from the police. they were mad at him. They were mad beyond him being gone, which is quite strange. It looked personal, in my opinion. It sounds like this was it was too personal that they would go to his funeral while he's resting in peace. They go and now they kick the coffin and they call him a dog, and it sounds like it was extremely deep, but we will never know the depth of the levels of the relationship and how bad it was.
Cause FM luhamba phambili sixoxe mlelo cause FM lethu ekhethu bingakwazi ukufinyelela kahle lapha na ke Ananda sayilungile izinto sesiyakwazi ukuthola nodade wethu uNompumelelo Mngoma. Sisiphumelela sikubingelele sikwamukele ku cause ekseni.
Sanibona.
Kunjani?
Ngiyaphila njani?
Sikhona ungathi kuvusa usalele nje.
Cha ngilele.
Okay, ngizwe down. Mhlamba siqale ngokuthi sizolane nani nokudlulelwa kwenu umshana okade oshonile. Mhlamba siqale ngokuthi sikhalisane nani ngase ngimbuza ukuthi nafihla kahle ngempela sonke sibuya kuyona.
Cha asihlanganeze kahle saphazamiseka kakhulu.
Okay, niphazanyiswa yini ma?
Sasiphazamiswa amaphoyisa.
Okay, naphazanyiswa amaphoyisa. Mhlawumbe uzongichazela ngokuhamba kwesikhathi. Mhlawumbe ke siqaleni ngendaba esematheni kakhulu la abantu becabanga noma kunenkolelo zokuthi uMnqobi uyena obewumholi weqembu lemkhulu ukuthi belikade lihlupha abantu. Bunjani ubudlelwane bakho njengo-auntie noMnqobi? Bebunjani ubudlelwane bakhe futhi nezinye ingane nawo wonke umuntu ekhaya? Uyingane njani mangathi uyamchaza?
Ayibe ingane nje efana nezinye ingane nje engenankinga. Siyakushwama nje konke nalowo sikuzwayo.
Engenankinga wenzani for ukusebenza njengengane?
Hayi bethu lo 350 nje.
350 lokahulumeni.
Yeah.
Usikole usiqedile wagcina kuphi ukufunda kwenzekani beyiphilisa ngani ngale kwa 350?
Isikole akasiqedanga. Ngathi indaba zama-grade mina kodwa nje yasiqedanga isikole.
Khona okuhlebelayo ma.
Oh bathi grade 10.
Yeah, sengathi ngakuhlebeli lo ngale ngoba uyasdisturb manje uthi uqedile wena utaqedanga agcina ngingasazwakali kahle.
So they are asking her how they buried, and she was saying that they didn't bury well because the police disrupted the funeral, and they are asking about him and what kind of a child he was. And the aunt now reveals information that he wasn't working and he was also getting 350 grant for the unemployed, that grant for unemployed, that's 350. And he left school at grade 10. So he didn't finish high school. He left school at grade 10. And there's also questions about him driving fancy cars, which we're going to get into. And the aunt is going to say that he was actually driving or being driven around by Ubers.
Kodwa manje ngizama ukumbheka akasiqedile isikole uholo 350 la atholakale khona elimazana noma ke kusolakala ukuthi bedubulana namaphoyisa behamba ngeemonto ehamba phambili kwenzeka kanjani lokho? Lifestyle audit ayikuvumi ukuthi ungathi uholo 350 kwazi ukugijima ngeemonto eziphambili kanje?
Angizwanga kahle ukuthi wegijima ngeemoto kuphile
eziphambili lapha atholakale khona kunezinsolo zokuthi ubedubulana namaphoyisa ukuthi ubehamba ngeemoto ebezikhona. Ngizama ukubheka umuntu oholo 350 kahulumeni mancane amathuba ukuthi engaba nezimoto ahamba ngazo.
Ayiwe ngahambi ngeemoto eziphambili.
Wayehamba ngenyawo ekade.
Uhamba ngemoto yokuba, weqasha imoto yokuba.
Wayeqasha imoto yokuba ngekade kwenzeka lokho.
Yeah.
So she's also saying that the time that the shootout was happening with the police, Mnqobi had hired an Uber.
Mhlambe yini ngokwazi kwakho ante enza ukuthi agcine
She's also saying he was hiring big cars in Uber.
eyekile isikole
egcineke isikole usho ukuthi mhlambe wayebona mhlawumbe ukuthi akakwazi ukuphumelela phambili ngasi ngithina ngathi
nani njengabantu abadala ngizama ukubheka nje uanti ufa
She doesn't know the reason why he left high school.
noyise phela wena wavuma ingane ithi yasiyeka isikole at the age of 22
ingane zamanje phela manje ingane uyithuma esikoleni ihamba ithi esikoleni ngadayisayo yabo ngeke uzikwazi ngoba izophuma igqokile wena uniform kuwena
bese
kanti ayisikoleni
bese uyayeka nawe.
She's saying children of the day, you don't know whether they're going to school or not. They will leave the house wearing school uniform and you never really know. This is what happens in our community. You cannot not know when your child is not going to school. It means you have zero communication with the school. That's what it means. It means you're not talking to the teachers, you're not attending parents' meetings, you are not contactable when the teachers are now concerned. They don't know who to contact. And it's quite concerning because he should have finished school. Perhaps finishing school could have improved his chances somehow, somewhat. Yes, our economy is very difficult. People who've attended school are also going through the most. But maybe, just maybe, he would have been one of the lucky ones who get opportunities to work. But without a matric as a first start, what was the expectation of how he was going to survive? It's a question.
Ngoba nakuze kuzingane zamanje kunegama anti abambiza
hayi ukuthi yayeke ingane sorry hayi ukuthi yayeke ingane
okay
yatshela ingane esikoleni yaye esikoleni kwazi wagcina ukuthi yayeka ngoba manje yayivela ingayi ihlala phansi ifeyila futhi ngoba yayiphuma la esikoleni uthiwe esikoleni ayifikanga yabo
should ingane hlupha.
He said he didn't go to school and he was failing. So how was he going to pass if he wasn't going to school?
Senzani njengabazali ezimene njengalezo kungiyazi ukuthi angikuthwalisi vele awuyena ubaba wayo nomama wayo uanti mhlawumbe nawe uhlala emzini wakho njalo njalo sicina sicontrola kanjani ingane njengaleyo ithunyiwe yethu ayesikoleni ayiye esikoleni ihambe yohlala nabangani bayo ngiya assume and then sivele sikubone kuyinto enhle nje esibekezelelayo.
Cha akuyona into enhle le sasingayithandi impela ukuthi ingane ingayisikoleni.
Okay,
she says they didn't like the fact that he wasn't going to school.
Kwangabikho uqondiso kwegwegwe kwenzekalayo.
Angizwa?
Kwangabikho uqondiso kobgwegwe obenzakalayo.
Shazama.
So the presenter is asking if there were any measures that were taken to correct what was happening with him not going to school, and she's saying that they tried.
Yes.
Sasuleka phela ngoba ingane ingane iphinda ama-class izibe ndala isikolo.
She's saying they tried and they failed because he was repeating grades and failing. That's another thing. There could have been a learning disability of some sort that needed to be attended to. But coming from, it also depends on what type of a family you come from that will be attentive to such learning challenges. Doesn't mean that you are incapable of learning. Sometimes it just means that you need to be in an environment that will assist your learning capabilities. And I also know that from the townships and the villages, that is rather difficult to have access to such schools and facilities, and it's a long process, and you're putting waiting lists and all of that, and it's a stressful process. But at least it would have been a process that, as parents, had they been involved, they wouldn't have wasted his time with him having to repeat grades instead of going perhaps to a school that would have catered to his learning needs. It doesn't mean that he was incapable of learning. All it just meant that he needed a little bit more attention and he needed a different way to learn. And this is so sad. It's so tragic because most of these kids in the townships and villages who are not attended to like this when it comes to their learning abilities, it always ends up like this. It always ends up where they now do crime. Some of them, it's a hopeless situation. So I feel like we need to speak up and to teach each other and to provide solutions to such things, and I know it's quite tough, so I'm not one to judge or anything like that, but our young boys also need to be taken care of. That's all I'm saying, because when they are not taken care of, they end up bleeding, and look at how they bleed, a whole community.
Umsakwazi ukucontrol.
Mhlambe kuleso simo nje nani nakho kubambisana nesikole kulezo ikhathi ngicane nesikole sasiphatheke kabi ngesimo sakhe.
Sasikwazi ukuba sixhumane nabasesikoleni.
Aha. Kwagcina kukanjani nabagcina sebeze bayeka.
Yebo.
Bagcina sebeyeki ngaleso sikhathi engayile esikoleni wayethi kunina uphuma yekuphi.
So she's saying even the school gave up on him. That's disappointing. Aren't teachers told what to do in situations like this? Isn't the government doing anything to assist? Because I'm sure even right now, there are children who are probably going through this. And the teachers, they don't know what to do. What is the mitigating situation when it comes to children that are like this? Oh, Lord.
Wangathi mebengale esikoleni bengabuye ezela ekhaya phela kuya ngekhathi sesikole sekubuya ingane.
Okay.
Ube ngazi ukuthi kade yile esikoleni.
Ube ngathi ubeyile esikoleni. Sekuhamba sekuyahamba seniyathola ukuthi hayi vele akasafundi lo muntu. Senibona abangani mhlamba asenabo. Bakhona yena abangani abasha abanixwayisa ukuthi awu bani labangani.
Hayi besingaze sibaboneke abangani ke befika lana ka baba. Mhlambe bebephina ngale ngaphandle kwethu.
Nibeni ekhaya nje ubebizwa ngomnqobi.
Yebo.
Benilazi leli lika Hilte 10.
Hayi besingalazi lo gama ka Hitle.
Niqale nje ukulizwa nini?
Igama la Hitle silizwa manje thina ukuthi beyiHitle.
They said they didn't know his gang name. They just found it out while he was getting buried.
Ekhaya ukuthi mina naye uyiHitle le.
Okay. Manje besikhathi sedasavuma siya kwenye indawo. Ngicela ukuvala ngalokho siqala uthe ube ingane enhle njengamanje esinye isithombo sipaintayo uyabona ukuthi khona ukuphuma kancane esandleni obekukhona. Usengaphinda ume ngamagama akho ukuthi ube ingane ehlonipha yenza yonke into ekhaya.
Abehlonipha nje kwashe emphakathini nje behlonipha.
Okay.
Not the aunt saying that he was respectful, even in the community he was respectful.
Nazi lutho macala akabekelwa wona ongabe ngawokushaya ngaba ukubulala abantu ababalelwa kulishumi nakho konke lokho kunya kushona izinto ukuthi ube nazo ezithola ngobugebengu niyakushwama lokho ningabazali.
Siyakushwama nje thina singabazali ngokuthi abesazi ukuthi uvikele umphakathi nje bengekho umuntu ohlukumezekayo le emphakathini.
Bewuvikela kanjani?
Begadile nje ukuthi akho umuntu ofikayo azohlukumeza abantu.
Ekhada kanjani na 20?
Auntie saying that he was the protector of the community, and there was no such things of him. Is it the same auntie who was speaking at the funeral, or they are all together in this dilulu that is so amazing too? It's fascinating. It's so fascinating.
Thuma ekatangana.
Cha bekhuluma nje ngomlomo labafana.
Hawu bekuyi police forum kuyilama forum amaphoyisa afonye emphakathini?
Hayi bingekho ku forum la kumphakathi wethu.
Ube iskepe?
Hayi bengesona iskepe. Behlangana nje nezingane ukuthi asivikele indawo yethu.
Wow. 22, they are asking her, how did he got the community at the age of 22? Was he a part of a policing forum? And she's saying, no, there's no policing forum in that community. And they're asking her if he was part of a scape. I forgot what a scape means, but I think it's part of the people that volunteer to guard the community. But if I'm wrong, guys, please correct me in the comment section. And then she's also saying that he was guarding the community and he would scold younger people who were misbehaving in the community. Wow.
More of a motivational speak ukuthi nje lalelani bafana nakho umuntu ozokwenza ubugebengu la.
Yebo.
Okay man, osizwa kahle. Nakho ukhala kamaphoyisa.
So the auntie now is confirming after the presenters, like, was he more of a motivational speaker, speaking to the younger generation? And she says yes.
Enzeni amaphoyisa kuba ngiyafisa ukuthi iside lenu njengomndeni lizwakale afike aniphazamisa anihlukumeza ngokwenzana.
Asiphazamse kakhulu amaphoyisa ebengaqali futhi ukuthi ngeke sakusheshele emuva ngiyoqala ekuqaleni. Asiphazamse kakhulu amaphoyisa kushukela nje shonile nje.
Akuniphazamisanga ukwenziwa amantomba. Okay, sorry ba yasiqhubeka.
Ngoba asikwazanga ukuthi simese esefikile la ekhaya ngendlela yosiko ukuthi umuntu mengabe eshone ngesikhali fona geza sangakwazi ukwenza lokho ngoba avane nje afika lana shaya abantu kwasakhonkonzo lana abantu bakhishwa abantu nje beshawa nje abantu kwasakusala umndeni wodwa
njengo auntie umntaka bhuti wakhe ukuphathe kahle ukubona lento ebesiyenziwa ngabantu ombazana emncwabeni for umuntu obemuhle kangaka motivate abantu enza izinto ezinhle ekhuza ubugebengu evikela umphakathi.
Uthi bani uphatheke kahle ke?
Ngisho wena ukuphathe kanjani ukubona abantu bedansa kwenziwa yonke lento bebekade yenziwa zingane emncwabeni kamuntu omchaza kanje?
Angiphathekanga kahle ngoba futhi lokho bese kwenzeke wona bengenzeki la ekhaya.
Kodwa nawe kukuhlukumezile ukubona.
Noma mina bengingekho wona bengisele ekhaya kodwa ngizwile lo ngakubona ukuthi kwangihlukumeze wayi khona kwala ekhaya ukuthi ingane asikho iphanga ngokomthetho ngako ehukula la ekhaya.
All right ma.
So she's saying with regards to the twerking and the dancing, she's saying that she wasn't happy about it, but it didn't happen at home. It happened at the hall, at the community hall. She wasn't impressed by it. It would have never taken place at their home. And she also said that it was not the first time that the police were harassing them. And she said that they couldn't get a chance to bathe him or wash him. After he arrived, his deceased body arrived, they couldn't bathe the deceased body. And he says that the police kicked everybody out and started beating everyone.
Njoba nibancane ekhaya nona umndeni omkhulu.
Cha umndeni omkhulu omuye bongafikanga.
Bebambe mhlambe bebanjwe yini?
Besaba abantu babe befona bese kuthiwa abantu bayashawa.
Okay, ngibona umfanyana lapha sithe uma simbona umfanyana obephethe ihlahla umfowabo mhlawumbe noma benimkhethile njengomndeni ukuthi nango ozophatha ihlahla ahambe khuluma.
Ingoba bese umalume wakhe bese eshaywa amaphoyisa kumandulele phansi. Wase kuthathwa ingane obhuti wakhe umzala kuyena. Ukuthi kube yona emsithayo manje ngoba amaphoyisa ngendlela bese ehlukumezeke ngayo. Ehlukumezeke ngayo.
Ingane ithi kwazile kodwa
kufanele ngabufiso ngumalume.
Ithini ingane ikwazile ukwenza konke lo umcikilisho yehlahla lesu kuyenziwa. Mhlawumbe umuntu mase
ingane yazi litho. Ingane phela yazi litho. Ngathi nje akhambanga nje kahle ngoba ayikwazi ukwenza izinto efana izenze.
Okay.
Yabo mase izothathelwa phezulu ingane itho enza kanje ngani. Banabi kade ishayiwe futhi.
All right man. No siyabonga kakhulu kodwa awazi ukuthi ungabavulela.
So she's saying that they are a big family, but they were afraid. Members of the family were afraid of the police, of course. And there was an uncle, apparently he also got beaten up, and that resulted in him letting go of the responsibilities and the duties that he came to perform with the herb, the mlahlankosi, I think they are calling it ihlahla, and then there is a younger man who had to now take over, and he didn't know exactly what to do, and he was also in pain because he got beaten up. It was chaos.
Amaphoyisa ecala ma.
Amaphoyisa ngiyakwazi icala ngwasalivule eqaleni bathi amaphoyisa sibopha amaphoyisa lamaphoyisa akwaboshwe. Bangabe ukuthi siyawabopha kuzofuna sihambe endaweni ngoba azosifuna ngasithola sibulala. Ngoba afika futhi asisabisa athi kuyena umalume wengane nina ngihambile nawo sibopha.
Sekuyakwenzeka kudala.
Njengoba ngithi nje ngikha phezulu ngoba indala nje afika eqaleni abashaya abulala nendawo le ekuthiwa umsamo. Abulala zonke into zomsamo.
Efuna yena Mnqobi njalo ngeinsolo zobugebengu.
Yeah, ashaya lo nto.
So she's saying that it's not the first time that the police came and they harassed them. The first time they came, they even messed up their msamo, or like their place where they speak to their ancestors, usually a kraal where it's for cows. She's saying that they destroyed that place the first time they came around. And the presenter is asking, was it with regards to suspicions of him doing crime? And she's saying yes.
Lo usutadwabo. Sahamba saye emaphoyiseni lapha sabo saye enkantolo eBritish. Sithi siyomangala phela. Kwathiwa eBritish awunimangalela amaphoyisa ngeke aze amaphoyisa azaboshwe.
Okay ma.
So she's saying they went to the police and they told them that the police will never get arrested. I am somehow troubled by this Dululu, guys. I have to put in my opinion. It's like now I have questions. Was the family in on what he was doing? I mean, and even if they were in, did they swear to protect him, to protect his actions? They were not concerned at all for what was happening. Were they benefiting somehow? I'm so confused. I'm not expecting what I'm hearing, but I'm hearing it and I'm rather concerned.
Okay, khona uphiko libizwa nge-IPD. Sengathi ungaguglisha lona bese uyobeka kulona, okay?
So the presenter is referring them to IPD. So that's the organization that investigates police and police brutality and all the wrong stuff that they do, like this one of them feeling harassed like this.
I think ngakayisizanga thina ngoba phela yazi ukuthi
okay
kulungile mhlambe nithiya ngakumina nje sengivala ekugcineni andi nithi uMnqobi ubengayisi isigebengu.
Hayi bese ngamazi ukugebengu thina ngoba nomakhelwane futhi khona kumakhelwane la mhlambe ngamkhulumisa nje be protect umphakathi.
Yeah,
Esquad yophila kasazi ngali.
She still maintains that what they know is that he was not a criminal. He was protecting the community. Okay, I'm gonna end it there because that was the end of the interview. Guys, a lot is going on in the situation. A lot is happening. I feel like the family somehow was aware of what he was doing, and right now they just don't want to be seen or heard to be affiliated with what he was doing because it's a lot. He sounds like he was quite dangerous. He was one of those people that had no mercy, and they were killing people like flies. In my opinion, the rap that I'm getting is it doesn't sound like he was what the aunt is saying he was. Although initially she's also admitting that the police initially came before. You know, it's not the first time that the police were investigating him. So, I don't know. May they find peace and may they find a way of breaking this before it becomes somewhat bigger than their control and it starts affecting their children. I feel like some accountability would help in the situation, but it's clear that it's not gonna happen. So guys, tell me what you think of this story and what you think, and if you were somehow more clued up than I am, please let me know in the comment section what your overall observation with regards to this is, in regards to this situation. What must happen? What's a way forward? What do we do to stop things like this from happening? Because it seems like criminals are getting younger and it's quite scary. Okay guys, until the next one, it's a bye from me.